What if the greatest discovery in human history didn't arrive with explosions, alien ships, or dramatic first contact, but instead appeared quietly in a stream of data that almost nobody noticed? Deep above the clouds of Hawaii, the Monarch Observatory stood alone on the peak of a dormant volcano, watching the night sky with the patience of a machine that never sleeps. On the 16th of May, 2026, something changed forever. Exactly 12 hours earlier, a senior technician working at the James Webb Space Telescope Flight Operations Center noticed a tiny flicker inside the telescope's mid-infrared instrument. At first, it looked like a routine error, the kind of glitch engineers deal with every day, but this signal refused to disappear. The telescope had been carrying out a standard deep field survey near the constellation Ophiuchus when it briefly crossed paths with an interstellar object known as 3IATLAS. In that moment, the automated filtering system suddenly triggered a level 3 anomaly warning, a category reserved for events that should not exist under normal physics. What the telescope saw next stunned the entire operations team into silence. The spectrometer began detecting massive concentrations of complex organic molecules. These were not the simple hydrocarbons commonly found on ordinary comets. They were chiral amino acids arranged in repeating structures that showed unmistakable patterns. Nature does produce complexity, but randomness leaves fingerprints, and this data had none. It looked organized, deliberate, and unmistakably alive. Then the thermal sensors recorded something even stranger. As 3IATLAS continued moving farther away from the sun, the object's core temperature began increasing instead of dropping. According to everything we understand about thermodynamics, that should have been impossible, but the impossible kept happening. Moments later, James Webb captured pulses of bioluminescent light deep within the porous layers of the object itself. The signals flickered rhythmically, almost like the beat of a biological heart buried under frozen rock. At nearly the same time, gravitational monitoring equipment aboard the Gaia spacecraft detected subtle distortions in space-time surrounding the visitor. It wasn't simply carrying mass. Somehow, it appeared to be bending the structure of space-time around itself. Inside a secured processing lab, veteran astrophysicists stared at the incoming telemetry while their coffee turned cold beside them. Calibration checks were repeated again and again, but the results never changed. The realization hit the room with terrifying clarity. This was not dead cosmic debris drifting through the void, but something entirely different. For decades, humanity assumed life could only survive under narrow conditions on warm planets orbiting stable stars inside carefully balanced habitable zones. But 3IATLAS shattered that assumption within minutes, offering evidence that suggested a completely unfamiliar kind of existence. One that did not rely on water, oxygen, or even planetary gravity. According to several theoretical physicists examining the telemetry, this object may represent a form of extra-dimensional biology capable of feeding directly on zero-point vacuum energy itself. If true, then humanity had just discovered a life form operating beyond the traditional rules of chemistry and evolution. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger the patterns became. Every pulse of bioluminescent activity inside 3IATLAS matched bursts of neutrinos detected simultaneously at the Ice Cube Observatory in Antarctica. The synchronization was exact, hinting at communication happening through mechanisms humanity barely understands. Some researchers proposed that the object was transmitting information through higher dimensions using principles connected to quantum entanglement. In simple terms, 3IATLAS might already be communicating with something impossibly far away without any delay at all. Then came another disturbing realization. To survive interstellar space, the object appeared to generate a superconducting shield around itself, expelling dangerous magnetic radiation from its core. This wasn't just protection. It was engineering on a level humanity has never achieved. Theories began spreading rapidly inside classified scientific circles. Some believed the life forms inside 3IATLAS might consist of dark matter or shadow matter existing partially outside normal physical reality. Others feared it could be a self-evolving von Neumann probe, a machine that had crossed the line into biology over millions of years of adaptation. and then the object changed again. Its reflective surface suddenly became brighter as it approached Mars. Scientists measured a massive shift in albedo, but this increase wasn't caused by ice or dust. It looked metabolic, as though the object were actively waking up as it absorbed charged particles from the solar wind. If the readings were correct, then 3IATLAS was converting incoming energy into exotic matter structures inside its core. Humanity was no longer observing a comet. We were watching something feed. The terrifying part wasn't simply that alien life might exist, but that this life form seemed vastly older, vastly smarter, and infinitely more advanced than anything humanity had imagined. The data pouring from James Webb suggested that biology and physics were no longer separate concepts at all. Somewhere inside this impossible object, life had learned how to manipulate space-time itself, proving that Earth was no longer alone in the dark. What scientists uncovered next would make those first discoveries seem almost harmless in comparison. Hidden inside the icy shell of 3IATLAS was evidence that this object wasn't just carrying life, but was actively protecting an entire ecosystem built to survive across the galaxy itself. The moment scientists realized that 3IATLAS might contain an entire living ecosystem, the atmosphere inside Mission Control changed completely. What had started as cautious curiosity quickly turned into controlled panic. Every new stream of telemetry seemed to challenge another law of physics humanity once considered untouchable. The deeper researchers looked into the object's structure. The clearer it became that this was not some accidental formation drifting through space. It was designed. Every layer inside the icy shell appeared, organized with terrifying precision, almost as if the object itself had been engineered to carry life across impossible distances between stars. As fresh scans arrived from the James Webb Space Telescope, analysts discovered strange geometric chambers buried beneath the frozen surface. These structures resembled enormous geodesic hubs connected through narrow crystalline tunnels running throughout the object's interior. But these weren't empty cavities carved by natural processes. Inside those chambers, sensors detected localized shifts in physical constants themselves. Tiny regions existed where gravity fluctuated slightly differently, where electromagnetic behavior altered by fractions of a percent, and where time itself appeared to move at inconsistent rates. Scientists struggled to understand what they were seeing, but the data kept supporting the insane conclusion that 3IATLAS seemed capable of creating miniature environments with customized laws of physics. That possibility changed everything. If the object could manipulate local physical conditions, then it could theoretically host multiple forms of life simultaneously, each adapted to entirely different realities. Some physicists began calling it a micro-multiverse, a traveling sanctuary capable of preserving species from across the galaxy. Suddenly, the comparison spreading through classified channels sounded disturbingly accurate. 3IATLAS wasn't just a vessel, but a cosmic Noah's Ark built by a civilization operating far beyond humanity's technological level. The implications became even more unsettling when the bioluminescent pulses intensified. Previously, the flashes had appeared rhythmic and biological, but now they showed unmistakable patterns. Teams working in signal analysis discovered repeating mathematical intervals hidden within the flickering light. At first, they assumed it was random resonance caused by thermal instability, but after several hours of decryption attempts, the pulses began revealing structured sequences that resembled information encoding. The object wasn't simply glowing, it was actively transmitting data. Across the world, observatories started collaborating in secrecy. Deep space antennas in Madrid, Australia, and Chile aligned simultaneously toward 3IATLAS, while governments quietly restricted access to portions of the incoming telemetry. Publicly, the object was still described as an unusual interstellar comet, but privately, experts understood they were witnessing something far more profound. The pulse sequences carried embedded mathematical constants that appeared universal in nature, including prime number chains, quantum ratios, and geometric harmonics. It looked less like random communication and more like a message intended to be understood by any intelligent civilization capable of detecting it. Then came another breakthrough. A secondary data packet arriving through the Deep Space Network revealed that the chiral amino acids discovered earlier were changing structure in real time. Under vacuum conditions that should have been completely hostile to biology, the molecules were assembling themselves into larger macromolecular systems. Life was actively building itself in open space. No atmosphere, no liquid water, and no planetary surface. Just pure interstellar vacuum. Scientists watching the simulation struggled to comprehend the scale of what this meant, realizing humanity's entire definition of biology suddenly looked primitive. The object itself also continued evolving as it traveled deeper into the inner solar system. Every 23 seconds, internal scans showed surges of energy spreading through the core of 3IATLAS. During each surge, the surrounding gravitational field shifted slightly, almost like a heartbeat affecting space-time itself. According to several theoretical models, the object might contain a quantum replication system capable of expanding its internal biomass continuously during flight. In other words, 3IATLAS wasn't merely transporting life, it was growing life while crossing the galaxy. Then the situation became personal. Exactly 4 hours after the latest scans began, Mission Control detected a coherent neutrino beam emerging from the object's core. The beam was not random. It was directed precisely toward Earth's L1 Lagrange point, one of the gravitationally stable regions between Earth and the Sun where many satellites operate. Scientists stared at the targeting coordinates in disbelief as it became clear this was intentional synchronization. The object appeared to be aligning itself with Earth's rotational cycle, almost as if it were attempting some form of contact preparation. The room inside Mission Control fell silent. For centuries, humanity asked the same question: are we alone? But now another question began replacing it. What happens if we were never alone in the first place? What if civilizations millions of years older than ours have already learned to spread life across the galaxy like gardeners planting seeds? According to some researchers studying the telemetry, 3IATLAS may represent a seed ship, a biological archive carrying the genetic memory of an advanced civilization through interstellar space. But the deeper they investigated, the more dangerous the discovery started to feel. Within the gaseous clouds surrounding the object, scientists identified localized time dilation bubbles where time moved slightly slower than normal. The effect was tiny, only fractions of a percent, but enough to confirm that general relativity itself was being manipulated as a preservation system. Whatever existed inside those regions was protected from aging during its journey between stars. Humanity wasn't looking at passive technology anymore. This was active space-time engineering being used to preserve life indefinitely. Hidden within the pulse sequences was something even more shocking. Preliminary decryption attempts suggested the signals contained a massive archive of encoded information, possibly the history of an entire civilization transmitted through light itself as a universal encyclopedia broadcast into the cosmos. Just as scientists started understanding the scope of the discovery, 3IATLAS performed an impossible maneuver that forced everyone in Mission Control to confront a terrifying reality. For days, scientists had treated the flickering bioluminescent signals as strange but unconfirmed anomalies. Pulsars pulse, magnetars flare, and quasars erupt with chaotic energy. But this was different. The more researchers studied the transmissions, the clearer the structure became. The intervals between pulses were no longer behaving like natural radiation events. They carried syntax, sequence, and intention. Inside encrypted facilities connected to the Deep Space Network, linguists, mathematicians, quantum theorists, and AI systems worked around the clock trying to decode the signal stream. At first, they focused on numerical relationships hidden inside the flashes, where prime number chains appeared repeatedly, followed by geometric ratios connected to higher dimensional topology. But buried deeper within the sequence was something that froze the room completely: recursion patterns resembling language architecture itself. This was not random communication crossing the void, but a message designed specifically to be understood. The realization hit humanity's top scientific minds with overwhelming force. Somewhere inside 3IATLAS, an intelligence existed that knew other civilizations might eventually encounter it. According to analysts reviewing the signal progression, the transmission behaved almost like a universal tutorial, beginning with basic mathematics before gradually introducing more advanced symbolic relationships. It was teaching us, and the first lesson it offered was terrifying. As machine learning systems continued decrypting sections of the data, researchers uncovered detailed mathematical descriptions of space-time geometry far beyond modern human physics. The equations implied stable manipulation of wormholes at Planck-scale dimensions. In simpler terms, whoever created 3IATLAS had solved the problem of moving information and matter across enormous cosmic distances without obeying the speed of light. Humanity had spent centuries believing relativistic limits were absolute, but this transmission treated those limits like beginner-level obstacles already overcome millions of years ago. Then the biological implications emerged. The encoded sequences appeared to describe methods for integrating organic systems directly with space-time engineering itself. According to preliminary interpretations, advanced civilizations eventually stopped separating biology from technology altogether. Instead of building ships to survive hostile environments, they redesigned life itself to function across dimensions. That possibility explained nearly every impossible characteristic observed inside 3IATLAS. The self-repairing shell, the dark matter shielding, the inertial dampening, and the temporal stasis bubbles. None of it was machinery in the human sense. It was evolved biological engineering operating on cosmic scales. The object was not carrying passengers because the object itself was the life form. That realization spread through mission control like an electric shock. Scientists had been imagining civilizations building advanced vehicles, but 3IATLAS suggested something much stranger, a species so advanced that their biology became indistinguishable from physics itself. Over millions of years, evolution and technology may have merged completely, producing organisms capable of surviving directly within interstellar space. Then the signal became personal again. As decryption progressed, researchers identified repeating references to a mathematical constant hidden within both the pulse structure and sections of the human genetic code. The correlation discovered earlier was no coincidence. Somehow, fragments of the same informational architecture existed in both humanity and the transmissions coming from 3IATLAS. Nobody understood how that could be possible. Some scientists proposed ancient panspermia theories, suggesting life on Earth may have originated from interstellar biological seeding. Others warned against jumping to conclusions, but privately, fear was growing. If humanity shared even the smallest connection to whatever intelligence created 3IATLAS, then the history of life on Earth might be far older and far stranger than anyone imagined. Meanwhile, the object itself continued evolving. The latest telemetry from James Webb revealed that the crystalline core beneath the icy exterior was becoming increasingly active, with energy surges rippling across its internal lattice every 23 seconds, each pulse stronger than the last. Simultaneously, Earth's ionosphere began reacting in ways scientists could barely explain. Atmospheric monitoring stations detected unusual electromagnetic harmonics spreading through the upper atmosphere directly after each pulse emission from 3IATLAS. Then came the discovery that pushed researchers to the edge of panic. The object appeared to be synchronizing directly with Earth itself. Quantum fluctuations measured in Earth's magnetic field were matching the pulse intervals from the visitor with impossible precision. According to several theoretical models, 3IATLAS may have activated a resonance effect between its own internal systems and Earth's atmosphere, essentially turning the planet into an antenna to establish the first node in a larger galactic network. Humanity wasn't simply observing first contact anymore. We were participating in it. The implications were overwhelming. If Earth's atmosphere could interact with the object's higher dimensional systems, then the boundary separating humanity from this unknown intelligence was already beginning to dissolve. Scientists who once dismissed string theory as mathematically elegant speculation suddenly found themselves confronting evidence that higher dimensional physics might actively shape biological evolution across the universe. And the pulses kept increasing. Across observatories worldwide, instruments recorded rising coherence within the transmissions. The signals no longer looked like passive broadcasts drifting through space, but resembled synchronization protocols, almost as if 3IATLAS was preparing Earth for something larger still. Every hour brought new anomalies. Satellite systems experienced unexplained timing deviations. Sensitive gravitational detectors registered tiny distortions rippling through local space-time, and deep ocean neutrino observatories began detecting patterns aligned with the pulse frequency. Inside Mission Control, nobody spoke after a translated sequence appeared across the central display, translated not through words, but through mathematical relationships so universal that their meaning became unmistakable. Researchers stared at the glowing symbols while every monitor continued flooding with incoming telemetry from 3IATLAS. For the first time since the object entered the solar system, scientists stopped asking whether the signals represented intelligence. That question was over. The terrifying reality now facing humanity was much larger. Why had this intelligence reached out to Earth specifically? The answer began unfolding almost immediately. As the pulse synchronization intensified, observatories around the world started detecting coordinated reactions spreading through Earth's atmosphere. The ionosphere wasn't simply responding to radiation from the object anymore, it was resonating with it. Electromagnetic frequencies across the upper atmosphere aligned into stable harmonic patterns that mirrored the transmission architecture embedded within the pulse stream itself. To physicists studying the phenomenon, the implication was impossible to ignore. Earth was behaving less like a passive planet and more like an activated component inside a larger system. Then the James Webb Space Telescope delivered another devastating revelation. Deep scans penetrating the crystalline core of 3IATLAS uncovered enormous lattice structures extending far beyond the object's visible dimensions. Portions of the internal geometry appeared compressed into higher dimensional space, existing partially outside conventional reality. According to theoretical models, the object wasn't merely carrying information. It was functioning as a dimensional relay station, a bridge connecting separate regions of space-time through engineered quantum corridors. In simpler terms, 3IATLAS had not come to visit Earth. It had come to reconnect it. That conclusion triggered chaos inside scientific and government circles worldwide. For decades, humanity imagined alien contact as a meeting between separate civilizations encountering one another for the first time. But the evidence emerging from 3IATLAS suggested something entirely different. Earth may have always been part of a much larger galactic framework, isolated only by our technological immaturity. Humanity wasn't discovering the cosmic network. Humanity was finally becoming capable of detecting it, and the object appeared to know that moment had arrived. As synchronization continued, the pulse transmissions evolved once again. The signals no longer focused only on mathematics and space-time geometry, but began transmitting biological information of staggering complexity. Entire molecular architectures unfolded within the encoded light patterns, as DNA-like structures appeared alongside quantum field equations. Researchers quickly realized they were looking at a unified model of life and physics merged together into a single system. This civilization had erased the boundary between biology and the universe itself, learning to manipulate matter, energy, and space-time as direct extensions of their own biological processes. Instead of building machines separately from themselves, they became the machines, evolving entire ecosystems into living computational networks capable of surviving across galaxies. In that context, 3IATLAS wasn't a spacecraft carrying ambassadors from another world, but a living archive. A self-aware organism transporting knowledge, genetic diversity, and dimensional infrastructure simultaneously as a cosmic seed. But the deeper scientists explored the transmissions, the more unsettling the implications became. Buried inside the signal architecture were references to something called the convergence cycle. Although the translations remained incomplete, recurring patterns suggested that intelligent civilizations across the galaxy eventually reach a critical threshold where communication through normal space becomes obsolete. At that stage, species either join the larger dimensional network or disappear into isolation permanently. Humanity, according to the transmission, was approaching that threshold right now. The timing aligned perfectly with another alarming development unfolding around Earth itself. Gravitational observatories began recording microscopic distortions spreading across localized regions near the planet's magnetosphere. Tiny folds in space-time, barely measurable but undeniably real, appeared and vanished in synchronization with the object's pulses, signaling what many physicists believe to be the earliest stages of stable wormhole formation. If you want to stay ahead of the latest breakthroughs unfolding at the edge of science and space exploration, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on what might be heading toward our solar system next.